Brother Applied Mode, I can't hear you. Okay, let's confirm in the chat room if you are able to hear me. And I can see Lokosa said the voice is low. Brother Derek Andon, can you hear me? Okay, I can see the voice is so low. Let me do this. Let me check if I can be able to increase the volumes. Yes, our sister Yvonne Duchume is facing some network glitches as well. She was the one behind the technical part. What about now? Is the voice clear? All right, thank you so much. Thank you. If you can all hear me, I do appreciate you in the comment section. Thank you. I do appreciate you. So we are going to have our brother Pride Mozi. If he can present his report, hopefully his network is okay. Our apologies about the last thing. Yes, Pride Mozi, you can unmute yourself now.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, you can hear you, Pride Mozi.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello, my name is Pride Mozi from Mashingo, Zimbabwe. In Kadoma. I'm going to take my present and I'm going to make it brief and short. Understanding is a non-governmental organization. It's a movement which seeks to promote 8 essential categories. That is health, education, transport, and etc. etc. The movement seeks to eradicate racism and xenophobia. Xenophobia, from my understanding, is the fear of foreigners by natives, and racial discrimination is any form of discrimination by one race to another. On the health report, Zimbabwe currently COVID-19 cases are very low, most probably due to the help we got from the government, non-governmental organizations, which are putting much work, make sure that this life-taking virus cannot severe. Also, challenges we are facing as Africa, I think basically racism and xenophobia in Africa is very low. Probably because Africa is very peaceful, especially in Zimbabwe. There's no wars. The political ground is solid, although the economy is down. All in all, if we unite as Black people, we can make something. That's all. I think I'm done.
Okay, thank you so much, Brother Modzi. Sorry, thank you so much, Brother Modzi, for presenting the report on behalf of Zimbabwe. We really do appreciate you, and also for spending the time. I understand you're in Masvingo, and we do appreciate you. Again, here there's a bit noise. I made the HICC. There's a show going on, a gospel show. So our apologies if you can hear some background noise. We do really sorry for that. And also, moving forward, you're going to have our brother all the way from Tanzania. His name is Mr. Edwin Chamba. He's also our ambassador. Yes, sir, Brother Edwin, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and you also present a report on behalf of people of Tanzania.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Edwin Chamba, an ambassador from Tanzania. I thank everyone for the good weekend of today. In this week, in protecting Black people against racism and xenophobia, we always insist on downloading our app, make it in a good way so that we recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses as a part of protecting Black people against racism and xenophobia. Activities in our group this week, we had different activities, including the first activities was to update our app so that we recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. Another activities was to join our co-founder, Sinclair Skinner, who hooked up with Cleveland Gibson, the former congressional staffer, for the discussions about how we can protect ourselves from racism and xenophobia. Another activities was to link up on our social media, so that we can know what is going on with our co-founders, other members, to see the posts that are posted in our in different social media applications of ILoveBlackPeople, Black people, so that we know what's going on and how to move with our movement. It's very important to hook up with those social media. Another thing was to RVSP for our Pan-African call of every Saturday. It was there so that we RSVP for the meeting of today. And then we make sure that we attend the meeting as well as possible, so that we know the movement, what's going on about our movement. And I insist on downloading the app, because when you download the app is where our movement is based on. Because when you download our app, we recommend Black-friendly and Black friends and Black only. It's good because when we recommend those things, it means that we create our green book of today, so that can help us to eliminate criticism, racism, xenophobia, and other kind of that on people who are visiting for the first time on the places. They will know where they are going to be treated well and where they are not going to be treated well, because we will be recommending some Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses that we may treat our people with dignity and respect. COVID-19 in my country, there is no changes about COVID-19 in my country. The statistics have remained as last week, as 34, 510 cases, 841 deaths up to this moment. Nothing changes. Thank you for listening. Welcome in Tanzania for everyone. Thank you so much. I am, because we are. Thank you.
Because we are much of the report on behalf of people. We really do appreciate you and also the support at the way future are helping us in terms of recommending safe places for Black people. We do appreciate that. I can see our brother is facing network challenges. Yes, brother Samba Mohammed, you can unmute yourself. I think you're now back on track. Yes, brother Mohammed, can you hear me? You can.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I've done that. I can hear you clearly. Good afternoon from
Thank you so
side
much.
down. Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you getting me?
I can go ahead and present.
Okay. So I want to thank you all. My name is Mohamed Samba Kamara. I'm from Freetown, Sierra Leone. I would like to give a quick update about some of the things that have been going on when it comes to the ongoing incident, especially for what happened in August 10. But before going further, I would like to thank ILoveBlackPeople management for giving me this opportunity, like to tell the story of my country. And I also want to thank all those that are making it possible so that we talked about the importance of us as Black people and how we should love ourselves as Black people, avoid all issue against racism and xenophobia. Okay, so in Sierra Leone, we lost over 20 people, including civilians and police officers. Okay, so on the 10th of August, there was what is known as a riot, as the police called it. And on the other side, the people call it a protest. You know, all of this occurred as a means of when people were like grumbling because of the inflation of prices, you know, and employment, um, you know, government attitude towards the people, or the people attitude towards government, you know, attitude of opposition towards the leading government, and you know, fought back. And all of these were like ongoing challenges, you know, so it's kind of tough. And these are some of the problems that actually creates that kind of spark, you know. And the police have got the intelligence long ago, you know, but they themselves never thought it was going to be like this. So for me, I worked with an organization here called Youth Partnership for Peace and Development, YPPD. And YPPD here is implementing the inclusive conflict and peace building project with support from the United Nations Peace Building Fund, UNPBF, in partnership with CODID. So violence here is not a new thing. You know, remember we just came from the Civil War. You know, 11-year Civil War was really tense and senseless as well, wherein these are some of the things that actually causes the war, as it's already clear in the findings of the TRC, which is the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And they also came up with recommendations from the TRC, but some of these are yet to be implemented, So there are a lot of various speakers, there are a lot of various issues that happens, because people also need the opportunity to protest. I think it's the people's fundamental right, as it's very clear in part 3, looking at the public possession in section 17.1. It also gives its own condition, wherein if you want to protest, you have to write to the police, to the Inspector General of Police, and within 20 to 21 days, they will get back to you, forth back. But normally, permits are not given, to a public, like to protest, this kind of thing. So, and the people definitely know they are not going to be given. So they too, they went out in the street. So when they went on the streets, huge number like were, protesting and so on and so forth. So they faced with the police, it was challenging, and the police also, the kind of tear gas, and they have like guns, it's kind of tough, fracas happens, this kind of stuff. So it was really, really challenging, wherein we saw the death of policemen, including a police officers, including a police woman. It's very tragic. And we also see the death of civilians. So, but for my own take, I think it's important that, for me, I condemn act, and all parties have to share the blame, from various categories. So it's not an easy one. And if you look at the laws are also challenging, because if protest is a fundamental right and the process should be simpler, and also working with the police side by side in having a peaceful protest. Also, the people should understand that having a peaceful protest doesn't mean you should attack the police or kill the police. Killing is not allowed. Killing is not permissive. So we actually condemn that act actually. And the laws have to create that kind of space. It has to create that kind of space so that people have the opportunity to protest peacefully and do their thing. And also, I think when it comes to standard, the police also have to look at what is known as the international security guidelines through the UN and other security sector, like the United Nations Security Council guidelines on security in terms of rule of engagement and all of the sort, because these people are civilians, okay? They don't have guns, but police were there with guns and live bullets. So all of these things kind of, it creates some kind of panic and so on and so forth. On the other hand, they should have used like the tear gas that they normally used. They have the watering can with the heat water, and the watering vehicle rather, and they also have like a protecting shield, and so on and so forth. And the police should not go to a riot with just a beret, because if the public use stone, the stone will enter into the beard. So I think we also need to protect our police officers or our security personnel as well. So that comes from the government. The government also need to protect the personnel, because for me, I'm seeing the police personnel as they've been trying, doing their best, but no matter how you see their work, some people will condemn it, some people will also appreciate them. But mind you, the police is an institution. We have individuals that are going there who serve as officers. So in terms of community policing, there should be kind of standards, in terms of recruiting. Who are the people that we recruit? Because these are community people, and we have to identify who are the people that we have to get to this. So it all draws down also how we also manage the law, and looking at the police and looking at how the military came in. The military came in, they also have hardware, but their manner of approach was much more different than the manner of approach of the police. Okay, the military came with their hardware, they were also like well equipped, but the manner of approach was very, 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 very different. And people were shouting and see themselves as part of the military and started shouting soldier team, quote unquote, if I could close my quote there as well. And the military also provide kind of transportation for those that want to go home, for those that want to go this way. It was like, they handled the situation. And His Excellency, the Vice President, Mohamed Juliet Jallo, was very, very unique in his own way and in his power to quickly call for immediate curfew at 3:00 p.m. local time, which was very, very unique to calm down the situation. And that was a very, very, very brilliant one, and law and order must prevail. That's key. Okay, we need to follow law and order, and the law should not cover some people and protect the others. Okay, government also should constantly engage with the public, because one of the things that also creates that kind of space, there is a huge gap that the people need to hear from their government. Government should serve as a parent, to make sure they have communication with the public. It was tough actually. So the people need that kind of conversation. And we want to thank, we actually want to thank, what would I say? The president of Guinea-Bissau, and who also served as the ECOWAS authority leader. That is HE, the president, His Excellency Umaru Sissoco Mbalo of Guinea-Bissau. Like, he asked the opposition parties and oppositions, all of them, to meet with the president. And the president also listened to that call from His Excellency Umaru Sissoco, because now the president has held meetings with religious leaders, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, or activists. So these are the things that we want, and the government also, to His Excellency, the Vice President, and in his power by then, like, declare curfew, and it was timely, it was unique, and because of that, the situation were able to calm, and when the president came back, and the president continue from there, they lifted or revoked the curfew, and things were going normal, stable. The only thing, we have silent killing is going on. We are seeing the videos, we are seeing, we are also getting hate speech, hate messages, and people are also perpetrating violence within and outside the country as well. There are those that live in the diaspora as well. instigating others, to go out in the street whilst they are there. I think we should lead by example if actually like we want things to change from a real brand. So, but you cannot just instigate people and then you don't come out or you don't be there for them to organize them in a peaceful manner, because that is what we're looking for as a nation. We just from the brutal civil war and we understood clearly what it means. So we are calling also on government for a speedy kind of investigation that should be excluded of the police, because the police is also part of those that will be investigated. So we don't want the police to be part of the investigation. So we are asking government to do a speedy investigation on that, and that would be brilliant if they actually do that, and that would be what will I say? That would be amazing, and people are looking forward towards that. So another thing that I would like to update the group about is I've talked about the manner, is about how we get an inclusive society. Our politics here is different, and politics is the only thing that is creating the divide. When it comes to tribal, when it comes to sectionalism, it's all tied around politics. Without excluding politics, we are united. We are so unique. When it comes to religious, we are religious. We have intermarriage. Mende can marry to Limba, Limba can marry to Kuru, this kind of stuff. But as soon as politics comes in, then it's change, the dynamics change to violence and so on and so forth. So I think we should follow the recommendations of the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Sierra Leone, and also we saw some of the things from what the special court says or what they did. So we should also bring to book those that are preaching hate and preaching out hate messages, and those that perpetrate or perpetrated the August 10th event as well, including those that killed, be it from the police, be it from those that are called protesters or rioters. So yes, I think we are looking forward towards that. Sierra Leone is a beautiful country. It's a beautiful place to be. We have everything that we want when it comes to the hills, the valley, tourism, and so on and so forth. It's only politics that is killing our unity. And even our attitude and our approach to ourselves was very bad regarding how can people burn down police station? How can people burn down public vehicle, like medical vehicle? It's a loss to all of us. Killing policemen, police women, is a loss to all of us. Killing the civilians as well is a loss to all of us. I think we should stop some of these. And we are against xenophobia. We are against racism. That's why, as I love Black people, I am because we are. That's what we are preaching, and that's what we want, and we want that to go all over. So we are encouraging people to push on. I think that's what I have to say for now.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador Mohammad Samba Kamara. I understand you do a lot of things, and also you are a singer. Keep on doing the good work and also advocating for Black people all over in your country. We really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for you letting us know what's going on there in Sierra Leone, and also updating each other and encouraging the youth and everyone to stay safe. Let them continue using the application in terms of sharing those safe places for them which are non-violent. Again, we do appreciate your time and also your efforts in presenting the report, and also dating the nation and global about what's going on in Sierra Leone. We do thank each and everyone there in Sierra Leone are going to use the application again to share those safe places whereby they are not like treated violently by the, and also you encourage each and everyone to abide by the country laws. And thank you for that again. We do appreciate it. Thank you, brother. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and you yourself, you are safe. We pray that everything will be in peace again in Sierra Leone. Thank you so much, brother. I really humbly appreciate you with your effort and also your presentation, giving us a clear update of what's on the ground there in Sierra Leone. Hopefully people are no longer killing each other and there is peace all over. We need to spread the love. Thank you so much. I am, because I appreciate you, brother. All right, thank you so much. That was Brother Mohamed Samba Kamara. He's from Sierra Leone, and he was giving us update on what was going on in Sierra Leone. We did see on social media there were protests going on, people killing each other. The pictures were very disturbing, and we don't allow those to be shared on our social platforms, so that other people may be traumatized by that. Again, I can see our brother from South Africa wanted also to give us an update on what's going on in South Africa around the city of Cape Town. Brother Pride Matabwa is also, I think he's facing network challenges. He was trying to join, but I see he's not able to join us. I think what we need to do is we have our brother Pride to present next week on Saturday. You'll be the first one to present, so that you give us an update on what's going on in South Africa. I hear that people were being planning about xenophobic attacks there in South Africa due to foreigners whom they say they need to go back to their countries. And our brother Pride Matabwa wanted to give us an update on what's going on in the streets and also in the country at large regarding these issues, which can lead also to the loss of life. And also, he's encouraging people to use the application in terms of sharing those safe places for Black people all over them. Yeah, so that was the presentation. Maybe I can go through our brother Patrick Matabwa's report and read it out loud on his behalf, because I can see he's facing network challenges to join and give us the updates. Yeah, I think I need to read it from my end. Yeah. So the report was compiled by brother Patrick Matabwa from South Africa in Cape Town. Greetings, brothers and sisters all over the world. My special gratitude to our co-founder of ILoveBlackPeople, Mr. Sinclair Skinner, our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapondera, our host, Award from Zimbabwe, co-host Yvonne Tushime, Kigali in Rwanda, ambassadors, moderators, and all ILoveBlackPeople, people all over the world. Dr. Taryn Wright and Sister Nana Akua. Last week meeting, we had our country representatives who gave reports representing their countries. We had all COVID-19 reports from our representatives present on that day, and also letting us know traveling restrictions from those countries due to COVID-19 were also presented on Zoom. We were reminded to encourage our brothers and sisters to download the app, the ILoveBlackPeople Safe Places app, which is available on both iOS and Android users. We were reminded to encourage our brothers and sisters. Sorry, that was a repeat. The main aim of the app is to recognize and recommend Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses, and to share them with other fellow Black people. These are businesses which have been shared are going to also to be uploaded on an online digital guide specifically made for the Black people community all over the world, which is ILoveBlackPeople.com. We encourage each and every one of you to check out the website and see the ILoveBlackPeople.com and the work they are doing. On the website, there are a lot of things. I urge you all guys to go and visit the website, which is ILoveBlackPeople.com, which is also an online, I think it's not clear this site. And then he went on to to thank our co-founder, Mr. Christopher Mapondera, for the speech which he gave on last Saturday. Thank you again, Mr. Mapondera. Today he's not available. He's at his farm. Actually, he arrived here in Zimbabwe a week ago, and he does farming. At the moment, he did cabbages and tomatoes. So Mr. Mapondera is also a hard worker, a farmer, an engineer, a Pan-Africanist. We thank you, and also we are very proud to have him as our co-founder. Without wasting time, we're going to jump off to a healthcare lecture led by Nana Akua. I wouldn't want to delay that lecture because each and every one of you have been waiting for that. Then for the handouts, I'll write the email for Nana Akua in the chat room. And also if you want to receive a shout out from Nana Akua, kindly switch on your camera so that you can be greeted by our sister Nana Akua. Yes, Nana Akua, can you hear me?
You. Greetings. Hello, award. Greetings, everyone. Hi, Yvonne. Good day, everyone. Mohammed and Tanu and Antonio. That's all. Thank y'all. But okay. All right, Derry. Okay, nobody else. I see we low on our numbers today, huh? It's only 23 people, where you all are the 23 people. Everybody that's supposed to be here is here. Hey, Clyde. All right, so wonderful. Thank you all for joining us today. So today is, and hopefully my computer will cooperate and we can see some handouts. If not, you know, you'll just have to look at me. But we are talking today about stress. And so I happened to schedule an appointment early this morning. So I'm literally just getting back in front of my computer. So that was a little stressful, right? But I knew it would be, trying to cram in something before, and it's early here. I know y'all, and some of you all in different parts of the world. So you've maybe been up for a while, but it's a little early here. So me trying to do a 9 o'clock appointment and then get back and be in front of this screen, but I got it. But then y'all didn't let me in for a little while. So I made it before 10:45, barely, maybe it was 10:44. So either way, I'm glad to be here. And I am happy to talk about how to relieve stress. And so I'll give you my example, because a lot of times we get stuck in situations where we make things harder for ourselves. And, you know, I'll often say, if I identify stress, right, I'll say whether or not it's self-imposed, right? Whether or not it's something I brought on myself, right? Or whether it's something that I couldn't control. So sometimes there are stressors or situations that we can't control. A lot of times there are things that we can't control. But sometimes we bring things on ourselves, right? We certainly do this with relationships. We do this with how we schedule things. So sometimes it's self-induced, right? But either way, we still deserve to be happy. We still deserve to be stress-free, right? So sometimes it's a matter of reevaluating our situations, our routines, our plans. Carl, thanks for joining and showing us your lovely face. I think somebody else is coming in. It's still, I see your face, but it's still working, saying connecting. So I don't see your name yet. But thank you all for indulging me with that. Let me see really quickly if I am able to pull up the handouts for this week. If you all know how to, I don't see it quickly on here, but those of you that are good with Zoom, do you know how to raise your hand? I'm interested to see how many people that are on today that are in the current WhatsApp group for the healthcare portion. Okay, or you can raise your real hand, right? But I know there's a button. Okay, great. Thank you, Jeffrey, Nadine. Okay, let me scroll to the second page. I'm just curious. Okay. So I know that there's some overlapping. I know that sometimes, you know, people, of course, who join the call are simply joining the call, but some people are actively in the current WhatsApp group. So of course you get the handouts, but also if you are not part of the active current group, again, Award has stated he'll put my email in. So feel free to, give me an email request for the handouts and I'll happily send those to you. So now let me see. So if you've joined us before, you know that we've talked about stress and sort of a working definition of stress. Let's see if this will pull up. And if not, that's fine. And boom. All the stars have aligned today, apparently, because I think you see my screen where there's a handout here, right?
Yes, sir, we can see the screen and the handouts.
And let me just scroll up to the top here. Yes, thank you. So, wonderful. I don't know what happened. And I did nothing different today than what I did last week, but hey, who knows? But anywho, so stress. Stress is a state of physical or mental tension or something inducing it. So it can be some sort of mental anguish, some kind of tension, some kind of push or pull, or something that causes that or induces that. Or it could be pressure or strain that tends to distort a body, a mind, a spirit, or just take something out of its normal routine, its normal shape, its normal character, its normal being, right? And so we know that there always will be stress. It's sort of like change, right? The only constant thing in life is change, and I'll add stress, because we'll always have something that will occur that will get us off of our routine. If we could just simply get up and know exactly everything that would happen in that day, well, I don't know, life would be boring. And probably wouldn't be very realistic. I just don't know how life would be like that, right? Because as much as we try to prepare, plan, schedule out things, there's always going to be some variables that will occur that we have no control of, right? And so that is what then will cause some sort of stress, whether it's mental stress, whether it's physical stress, whether it's emotional or spiritual stress. I have over the years had to learn, specifically, and I like to share this. It's not always going to be an emotional or spiritual or mental type of stress. Brought that on. It could be stress. You may have habitual changes from your routine where you're constantly late or absent from work or other obligations that you have. You may become impatient. You may not have the ability to concentrate and focus as normal. You may lose your pleasures in life, things that you usually enjoy doing. They're no longer fun or enjoyable for you. You may have changes in your appetite. That's one of those physiological changes. You may not understand why you're eating so much or why you constantly stand in the kitchen or eating, or you may not realize, why 8 hours has passed and you've not eaten anything. So you could have an increase or decrease in appetite. You may have muscular aches and pains for no apparent reason. Okay, you didn't go work out or you didn't go walk 10,000 steps that day, but you're still really achy and sore and don't know why. You may have stomach or intestinal disturbances, diarrhea, constipation. Diarrhea a lot of times will happen because there's a lot going on and you don't realize it, but the body is just trying, just as your mind is trying to get things done and get things moved off of your to-do list, then the body starts reacting in that way and tries to release any physical toxins or waste that's in the body. Or the opposite, people who are stressed and they usually hold things in, they don't talk, they don't say what they have to say. The people who are introverts and maybe don't always find their voice to speak out when something is not right. Those are the people who may suffer from constipation. And you're then also physically holding in what you need to release. So all of this is relative and related. So something that you'll think has no bearing on the other actually does. Sweaty palms, I mentioned already. Tension headaches. You may have headaches and not understand, why is my head hurting? Why, is there pain? Is there pressure? Is there throbbing? All of this could be from stress. And then of course, performance anxiety. Some people something you may normally do very easily and very proficiently, you can develop, anxiety about doing a really common basic task. All of this can be caused by stress. So let's talk about some ways in which to do that. I gave you my example, right? I already knew I kind of scheduled something that I knew would add stress to my day, right? So if we skip down to number 5, where we reassess or change our lifestyle, our patterns, our activities, our scheduling, right? Because if we know that every day you're late to work, but if you evaluate, okay, what time do I go to bed? Oh, I go to bed at 10 o'clock, but then I have to get up at 4. Oh, okay, well, maybe I need to get up a little earlier. Go to bed a little earlier. Or, and that's an extreme. I do not envy people who have to get up that early. But for me, if I go to bed at 12, but I know I have to be up at 6 or 7, I have to adjust my sleeping pattern. Or if I know I have to be somewhere by 8 and I'm not getting up until 7, a simple change in my schedule of getting up at 6 or 6:30 can really create a more peaceful, calming morning that I'm not adding stress because I've crammed in too much to do from that time that I've woke up. But it can be exercising your tension away. It can be in your home. It could be in a health club. It could be watching something online, doing a Zoom aerobics or yoga or step class. It could be any of those types of things where you exercise your tension away. You may also need to deal with negative people. Sometimes we are stressed and we have the anger and the resentment and the impatience because we're dealing with people that maybe we don't know how to deal with that type of person. And it could be them, right? But we know that we can't change them, right? We know we can't change what other people do. We can only change our responses to them, right? So another way of handling stress may be to join a community, social, recreational club or group, some kind of organization that has like interests and like goals as you. Spending your time helping other people or involved in some kind of activity, even if it's just a social club, where you just go out together, have fun. Any of these things still can help break the monotony and allow you to enjoy life and have fun and not just do all the things that you have to do. One of my prayers is always that I have everything I need, but I also ask for things that I want, right? And so in that same vein, we want to be able to efficiently do it, to say what we need to say, discuss things, work things out, express our feelings, something that's maybe infuriating us on the inside, but we never share it with the person. Then it builds up and boils over and flows, right? And so we don't want to get to that point. So we want to be able to effectively express ourselves on a regular basis. And whether it's just talking to a friend to vent, whether it's writing it down, journaling, if you're a talker and you don't like kind of sitting down and writing things in a journal, you may simply talk into a recording device and do a audio journal. I think TikTok and some of these other things where people, the lives and things, I think allow for folk who like to record themselves and whatever, because right, sometimes people just get in front of these things and they're just kind of saying what they feel or thoughts that they had or whatever, right? That might be their way of expressing themselves. So all of these are fine. And I think social media have even given us some additional outlets for those. Because of course, sometimes I'm going, why did they bother to waste their time making this video? But hey, that maybe help them. That may be part of their healing journey. And so they now have video journaling to be able to express themselves. Some people need to draw or build things, make things. You know, people who are hands-on people and like to do things with their hands to express themselves. Any and all ways that help you express yourself can help you relieve stress as well. Practicing your spiritual beliefs, tapping into whatever inner power that you have, praying, meditating, practicing actively whatever spiritual principles you follow, whatever commandments, whatever principles, whatever taboos, whatever things that it is that you're to do or to not do. Hone in on those things and really, you know, be intentional with those types of spiritual practices can also help alleviate stress. And then, of course, always, always nurture and take care of yourself. I have a friend that always says, you're your star player. You know, you're the star player. You always have to look out for number one. You always have to take care of yourself. First law of nature is self-preservation, right? And so if you're no good for yourself, then you can be no good for anyone else. So if you're not good, how will you make sure that other people that you're responsible for are good and taken care of? So you always have to, and it's not selfish. It's nothing wrong with it. You deserve to be well and healthy and happy. And so you have to nurture yourself. If it is going and getting a haircut or getting your hair done or getting a massage or getting a pedicure or getting a manicure, or if it's going to the gym, if it's going to see a nutritionist and learning how to eat better, if it's going on a nature walk, whatever it may be that allows you to really pamper yourself, take care of yourself. And if you're doing it in home, you may buy one of those little plastic foot tubs and you simply put some warm water and some essential oils or some Epsom salt or some herbs or some flowers in it and soak your feet. Any number of things. It could be sitting quietly in a room where there's no one else and listening to nature sounds or a waterfall, burning some incense or an essential oil diffuser, but creating a space and time where you focus on pampering and taking care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit. All of those are very, very important. These other relaxation exercises, I'll leave with you to kind of experiment with on your own. Implement these things throughout the day, whether it's clenching your jaw and releasing it, you know, pulling up your shoulders and then, you know, relaxing them. There are all kinds of things that you can do physically to help alleviate stress. This little handout I also like. It has 101 stress relievers listed. Some you would never think of. It could be as simple as dancing. It could be swinging in a swing. It could be going fishing, laughing at something you did. You know, helping other people, laying in a hammock. They list all sorts of things here. And all of these are good options for somebody. May not be your cup of tea, but if you look through this, something may stand out and you'd be like, okay, I am really happy when I do that. Oh, I do like doing that type of thing. Oh, okay, that's an idea I didn't think of. So feel free to use that. I want to, now we know that physically there are certain hormones, there are glands that handle stress. And I won't bother to go through that today because I want to get to something else. But the other thing that I'll say, rest is so important. It's just like someone who says, oh, I need more energy. I'm so tired, I'm fatigued, and I have so much to do. I work 2 jobs, I have 3 children, blah, blah, blah. Just like with having lowered energy or fatigue, same thing with stress. One of the best means or methods to handle that is getting proper rest. So there are herbs and things that you can take. However, start always with good sleep. Making sure your room is ready for you to sleep and creating the environment that you need to sleep. If you have to sleep in complete darkness, you know, cover your windows, get those blackout curtains or put some material or something over top of it. Make sure that the room is dark. Some of the devices we have, maybe put them not on dresser level, maybe put them in the floor so that you don't see them. Your lights on the battery charger or the lights on the cable box or whatever. Do whatever you need to block out light if that's your thing. If you sleep better with music, then, you know, put some soft music or nature sounds or whatever music or sounds that you need to help with your sleep. If it's a certain temperature you need, if you often get hot in the middle of the night and you need to have maybe a little fan on low or something like that. But try to create whatever environment you need so that you sleep as easily, as comfortably, as peacefully as you can, because that is one of the best ways to handle stress. So all of these little handouts that I'm scrolling past, one talks about anxiety, one talks about grief, one talks about stress, and it just highlights some of the physiological effects of these types of emotions and these situations, what glands they affect and that sort of thing. And then it also gives you some herbal remedies for it, right? So all of that's important. But what I wanted to get to is another means or way of handling stress. And this kind of goes in with my talk about good rest. So a lot of people suffer from insomnia. A lot of people fail to get adequate sleep every night. There are a lot of people functioning off of 2 and 3 hours or maybe 4 hours a night of sleep. I have to say that that's ridiculous. No offense, but if you're offended, then you have to correct yourself because there's no way around it. You have to get good sleep. You have to sleep more than 2 or 3 hours a day. I feel it's just as ridiculous for the people who say, I don't have a bowel movement every day. And they say, oh, I only go 2 or 3 times a week. That's just normal for me. People who don't get enough sleep say the same thing. Oh, I can function. I do it every day. I don't sleep but 2 or 3 hours a day, but I still work and I'm fine. I assure you, you're not fine. And if you can make it, now you're just at survival level, right? So we know that there are a lot of times in life that we're just surviving, right? But what's better than surviving? I really want you to think about that. Thriving. Thriving. We don't want to merely survive. We want to thrive. We want to be better than just I'm making it or I'm okay or meh, you know, everything is okay. So you have to get proper sleep. And sometimes to get proper sleep, conscious breathing exercises, even if it's just slow, deep breathing, can help you do that. So this is one thing that you can do as you prepare for bed. You can drink the different herbal teas that are under the sedative or nervine categories that we've talked about before. You can prepare your room, but also you may need to sit and quiet yourself and do deep breathing. So deep breathing is simply right? And just in the diagram here, it's simply telling you what happens physically. When you inhale, you're inhaling through the nose. Your chest expands, your diaphragm contracts, your belly expands, right? And then when you exhale through the nose, the chest then relaxes, the diaphragm relaxes, the belly contracts, right? So this is just what physically happens. But when we do these things, we're detoxifying and releasing toxins, we're releasing tension, we're relaxing the mind, the body, and we're bringing clarity, we're relieving pain. Can you imagine? Just by conscious breathing, deep breathing, you can help relieve pain. We're strengthening the immune system, we're improving the quality of our blood, we're strengthening the lungs, we're improving cellular regeneration, we're elevating our mood. We feel better. We have a lot of stress that we carry in our bodies sometimes, and we do not realize it. So thank God we don't have to think about breathing, but when we do, and we do conscious breathing exercises, and we do conscious breath work, right? We can affect so much change so that we move from just surviving to actually thriving, right? So what we'll talk a little bit more about next week is all of the different breathing exercises. It doesn't have to be breathing. If you've been with us before, you know that there are a number of other breath work exercises that I've talked about, fire breath, right? Right, so there are pages and pages in this packet that we talk about different types of breathing exercises. So, but just focus on nothing else but just the deep breathing if in fact you're having trouble sleeping and you want to increase the quality of your rest and create a better routine for when you're preparing for bed. So let me quickly see. Okay, welcome first timer. Yeah, and some of us are forever busy, absolutely. But reevaluate your routine, your schedule, see what you can change. And whatever little change you can make, that may make a big, big difference. Me getting up a half hour earlier, I'm telling you, changed my life. No BS. You know, a simple thing of getting up just 30 minutes earlier. Okay, so I'm out of time. If I didn't get to scroll through, feel free to email me. I do have some minutes. If I scroll through after Dr. Wright starts, I may send you a direct message. But as always, thanks for joining. I'm happy to see all your beautiful Black faces. And as always, I wish you good health and peace.
Thank you so much, Nana Akua, for a wonderful lecture. Hopefully each and everyone you are listening, and also for those who are interested in the handouts, kindly reach out to nanaakua1@gmail.com. Again, thank you for the wonderful lecture. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. On next, we're going to have Dr. Taryn Wright to lead us in the Pan-African history. Yes, Dr. Wright, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and also we can see you. You can go ahead and present that to us.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad. All right. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So this is, I think we're in the second week of the Pan-African History and Organizing course. So I just wanted to say today I'm going to stick to the time because yesterday I had a little dental work done. And so I don't want to I was told not to talk, but I'm going to. So can you let me know 20 minutes into the session so I can stop and then start to take Q&A, okay? So you should have read this week, it's hot. You should have read this week the chapter on Booker T. Washington in Africa from the book on the African exclusion measure, which is a very specific case where Washington is involved in challenging US foreign policy. I'm trying to position my camera like well, because I don't have it mounted. Anyway, where he challenges US foreign policy that pertains to African people internationally. And so we're gonna cover that. I'm gonna just hit on some important points in the case and then jump to the conclusion. As some of you may know by reading the chapter, it was a policy case and it came about as a result of the Panama Canal being built. And the Panama Canal was completed in November of 1914. The laborers on the Panama Canal were the African population from the Caribbean, Central and South America. And that being the case, when the canal was completed, the US government, in the form of a senator out of Missouri, proposed a measure that said to exclude anyone of the Black or African race from the United States from that day forward, from 1914, 1915 forward, okay? So this is about approximately 107 years ago. This proposed amendment to the large immigration bill passed in the Senate. It passed in the Senate with no argument, and it was due to go to the the House of Representatives. That being the case, denied by US immigration. This also historically is one of the first times that we can see legislatively that the US government took race and culture, race being Black, culture being African, and criminalizing it, putting it in the same category as criminals and undesirables, right? So also a historic move on their part. Not the first time that they would propose an exclusionary measure regarding African people, but the first time it would go this far, okay? That being said, Booker T. Washington would be the person who organized and challenged to this exclusionary measure. And the chapter, if you read it, gives you understanding of his three-pronged challenge to this piece of legislation, racist piece of legislation. So I'll just go over it briefly. He challenges it in the press by informing people through the Black press that this exists and that this, in fact, is coming before the House of Representatives. And if it does pass, it will become law. He also put his private network, the Tuskegee Machine, into action and sent them to DC to poll and directly challenge US legislators, primarily in the House of Representatives, and hold up the Congress with regard to this particular measure. He also would challenge privately, or plan to challenge privately, the standing US president, which was Woodrow Wilson, who, if all else failed, he would have gone to and demanded that this unfair and racist piece of legislation be vetoed. That being said, you know, if you read the case, he was effective because the doors of US immigration are open to African people globally, and still not without bias, but they are not closed, right? Conclusively based on race and culture, right? That being the case, he is seen in this instance challenging US policy. And what we want to measure at the end of the case is whether or not this was to the benefit of African people, right? So he's advocating not for African people within the United States, but African people outside of the United States, specifically the Caribbean, Central and South America, who were targeted in this piece of racist legislation. So when we say, like, you know, the premise of this particular article, I mean, not article, chapter, is really somewhat of the basis through which, you know, we can talk about Booker T. Washington in particular as a Pan-Africanist, because there's a solid, concrete case, right? This one being the African exclusion measure that establishes that he is in fact identifying with the masses of African people outside of the United States. He is challenging the very government that he lives under, and he's challenging not only the very government that he lives under on their behalf, but this is an individual who has advised. Right? They were fully aware that the population that labored on the Panama Canal were identifiably Black. They had gotten used to US wages and may consider immigrating into the United States. And this senator and the US government that really supported it and was allowing him to pass this piece of legislation in the Senate with no argument, agreed with that, okay? So the irony in that is that today there are many South American countries, Caribbean countries, Latin American countries, right? All in those regions, in that region, who do not identify necessarily as African or with Africa. Don't get me wrong, they love to emulate the culture, love to engage in the spiritual practices, right? But if there's a question asked, are you African? No, right? They do not conclusively identify with Africa in the sense that they are African people. Maybe, oh, I'm a descendant of Africa, which is to say, I'm not African. Maybe some of my ancestors were African. Even today, Black is a struggle. At a certain point, almost very few people in Latin America consider themselves Black. It is a growing thing. However, they have yet to have a Black power movement that changed the way they view Blackness, right? Today, they might identify with Black, but it's the negative, pejorative version of Black, right? A prieto, a negrita, right? Something negative, right? As opposed to African or Black is beautiful or Black. Simply Black, not a negative twist to it. So it's interesting that the very people that he was fighting for did not conclusively identify as Black or African. However, the United States government conclusively identified them as such. Had Washington had to work on understanding this, this measure would have passed with flying colors before he could have gotten his ideation and understanding of who's Black and who's African together, and then advocate and spin into action to challenge this measure in the Congress, right? So there's a bit of conversation to be said about ideological development, right? And consciousness, okay? And he had it, right? So those of you, I'm not telling people to buy the book, but the book is about this particular issue, right? His transformation. But we can see in this case is the fruit of that transformation in terms of his consciousness and understanding who he is and who others are, who the scattered African children of the world are, right? So let me just really, really quickly read the conclusions of this case. And then get to Q&A. Now, what did we get out of this? African people continue to be able to move in and out of the Western Hemisphere freely. And we're not talking about just one type of African people, we're talking about all African people, right? From coming from anywhere in the world can still move in and out of the Western Hemisphere freely. Because of that, because of African people within the United States challenge to US foreign policy targeting African and Black people internationally, we could have very next year, none other than the Marcus Garvey coming into the United States, right? Because of the defeat of this racist piece of legislation, right? Who else would come? Of course, we know if we're not for the defeat of this measure, we could not have an Nkrumah who came and was educated in the United States and then returned to be the leader of a liberated Ghana, helped Ghana to its liberation from colonialism. There couldn't be a Nnamdi Azikiwe, right, who also was educated here, no fella, but also there wouldn't be a Malcolm born in the United States because his mother was from the Caribbean, right? The doors of the US would have been locked and closed to her, right? She was from Grenada. There would have been, and I don't know how many of you guys like him, those of you in the United States or not, there would not have been, the Barack Obama because his father would have not come from Kenya into the United States for whatever it's worth. Right? I'm not convinced it was worth much, but okay. Right? Because that when we get into talking about individual proponents of Pan-Africanism and how people serve the interests of African people, we will critique very much like we're about to do the results, right? So we could look at a figure like Obama and say, although he is Black, did what he did serve the interests of African and Black people? And I think that some of us would be sharply disappointed, right? When we qualify, so you remember the syllabus saying, qualify everything. So politicians legislate, and we can qualify what they produce as legislation, right? We should have tangibles, right? And if they harm us, then that means they're not for us, even though they look like us, right? Sort of the remix of neo-colonialism, right? In Africa, we know about having heads of states that look like us, but then don't serve the interest of the masses, and the masses are robbed, right? People outside of Africa benefiting more from what is produced in Africa, be it from labor, resources, so on and so forth. So anyway, back to this case. The point of it is that, you know, yes, Obama's father was able to come into the United States, go to school, meet his mother, produce him, right? And so this is what this piece of legislation does. But more importantly, Booker T. Washington was trying to safeguard something. The Tuskegee itself and the Tuskegee model had become a hub for African people internationally in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, there were numerous people from the Caribbean, Central and South America, Black people, and other people internationally, and a steady flow of students from the African continent from as early as 1893. He is trying to protect that, okay? It's no, if you read to the end of the case, you see that he speaks directly to his students from the African continent, all right? The only group of which who personally thanked him for his efforts in challenging this racist measure, right? Not the students from South America or Latin America, of which there were many at Tuskegee, but his students from the African continent personally thanked him with regard to challenging and opposing this US measure. So it is important to see here that this person who was typically seen as a very American figure, not seen as a Pan-Africanist, is acting on behalf of all African people. And so let's go to our definition of Pan-Africanism: unity, right? So our unification of many different, very diverse African people. What for? For the purpose of eradicating exploitation, right? And oppression. And yes, it is oppressive to say, I'm going to exclude you, right? And your movements around this earth because you are an African person or because you're a Black person, and identifiably so, right? So that is oppressive in nature. It's meant to be oppressive in nature. It's meant to deny them access to educational resources, professional resources that are here in the United States, right? So the right to move freely around the earth is a human right, to be quite frank, okay? It's human beings who impose borders and say, no, you can't go here because you are this or you are that, right? And so, and really, you know, there's so many ways to look at this case. This case becomes a model for African people in the UK, for African people in any part of Europe, or African people in places in South America who still have governments that are very racist in nature and could propose and pass racist legislation, right? Look at European countries today and their issues with African immigration to those countries. Very racist. What if the African people and Black people internally understand and know the details of this case and how to challenge the governments they live under on behalf of African people outside? You see, European nations generally have a very negative attitude towards African immigration, right? We've seen this over and again. However, we need to critique the issue. Why are African people immigrating to European nations? Because European nations are raping African countries' economies. right? If the industries that produce the resources that are naturally from the African continent, that would employ African people right where they are, right? If the people benefit from the resources that are in their country, being from an oil wealthy country would actually benefit individual people, right? We saw models, well, I won't even go there, but there are models on the African continent where nations share their wealth with inhabitants, right? Libya was one of them before the present circumstance, right? That being said, this becomes a model on how African people, Black people, we can challenge the governments that we live under on behalf of African people internationally. Okay? In other words, by not allowing them to construct racist policies that are only based on genealogy and race, a very shallow construct of some person's appearance, right? Because race is not real. That's why we watch The Journey of Man, Genetic Odyssey in the beginning, to establish that race is not real, right? And humanity began in Africa. So we don't have to, but this is a construction by Europeans at a particular time in history. So I'm going to read the conclusions really quickly. The case of the African exclusion measure contrasts the Liberian crisis, which we did not read in this course, due to its brief timeline and Washington's very direct opposition to U.S. immigration policies. His efforts in the case exemplifies his natural inclination to address issues facing African people abroad, as well as within the U.S. There were no conflicting loyalties in this particular case. Washington took to the press and the people, publicly condemning the bill as unjust and wrongfully aimed at African people from the Caribbean, Central, and South America, but an overt affront to the masses of African Americans within the U.S. as well. He worked behind the scenes as well, directly attempting to persuade and challenge those expected to vote on the bill. Washington's ability to influence and affect the outcome of the case is an exceptionally short amount of time was telling. Several African so-called American leaders from the US publicly opposed the measure. However, Washington wielded a level of unconstituted power that facilitated the bill's repeal through a vigorous and well-organized campaign. The case conclusively counted Washington's effort to curtail discriminatory and racist policies directed at African people internationally. Although the amendment specified anyone of the African or Black race, the targeted populations were African people from the Caribbean, Central, and South America who largely identified by nationality: Jamaica, Costa Rican, Panamanian, Trinidadian, etc. However, this did not confuse Washington, who to a large degree understood the scattering of African people abroad due to enslavement. Regardless of the various identities and nationalities the targeted populations assumed, Washington's Pan-African consciousness and understanding of their historical context allowed him to act on their behalf. He accurately identified the targeted populations as African people and opposed the measure. International students and faculty, which were aware of the amendment and its defeat, wrote Booker T. Washington and thanked him for his efforts. Few doubted Washington's moral suasion. Direct pressure brought upon the congressmen through the lieutenants fostered the defeat of the amendment. So let me just be clear about something. So through the lieutenants, meaning the lieutenants of something called the Tuskegee machine, which was his tool, which was his ability, well, it was a mechanism, meaning it was a group of men who were power brokers, okay, who worked behind the scenes. And this is what he used he sends this group of men to Washington, D.C. to directly lobby and challenge U.S. politicians, you know, pretty much get in their face, hold up the Congress, poll them, come to an understanding how they were going to vote, and so that they could accurately and very strategically direct their challenges to the ones they expected to vote in favor of such a racist measure, right? So anyway, so those were the lieutenants of this secret network, right? The Tuskegee Machine. It's well known in US history as a tool of Booker T. Washington, right? He is both praised and criticized for his use of it. But in this case, you see him using it to the benefit of African people. And I think it's very important to understand that, because one of the things the world over that we have been taught to do is work against our own best interest. Okay? And part of understanding how to weigh and qualify Pan-Africanism is understanding when something is in our best interest, right? Because we have been so pigeonholed into working against our own best interests and being rewarded even for working against our own collective best interests, right? Individually rewarded, right? For working against our collective best interests. And here you see this individual who works in the best interest collectively of African people, not even in the same country, but outside of the country, in many countries scattered around the world. It changed the demographic of African communities, Black communities within, but it also would change the trajectory of African realities outside. Why? Because I talk about who? People like an Nkrumah, right? Who come and who are educated here, and of course, politicized to a certain extent. Having gone to a Black institution here, Lincoln University, having been immersed in the African context in America, and very much politicized to a large extent, and prepared to go back to Ghana and lead Ghana to its liberation from colonial domination under the British, right? So once we have something, then we have to weigh and measure it, right? So once we have the product that our unity has produced, then we have to weigh and measure it and understand whether or not it is truly to our benefit. But, you know, so we want to always look at the action and then what it produced. If it doesn't produce anything that is in the best interest and to the benefit of African people, it's not Pan-Africanism. Right? And this is something that, you know, that seems like a no-brainer for us, right? Because we're doing this work and we're in this conversation. But that's not a given, because there are many other distorted definitions of Pan-Africanism out there. There's blatant ignorance in terms of what Pan-Africanism is, right? That it hasn't produced anything for us collectively. It hasn't produced anything for African people within. No, it has produced something. And those things that didn't produce anything for us, that's not Pan-Africanism. It's just Black folks getting together, coalescing, sometimes with no objective, sometimes just mobilizing, sometimes just to raise one's voice, but not necessarily to transform anything, right? So we have to make a distinction of that, right? So let me continue. There's only one last paragraph left. It was during his fight against the African exclusion measure that Booker T. Washington challenged U.S. political representatives in defense of African people abroad for the first time. In the previous case of the Liberian crisis, Washington was responsible for the private negotiations and in keeping Liberia on the agenda in political circles. Here, he openly and vocally challenged the adoption of language that emerged in the immigration bill. The language of the bill would change how U.S. policies regulated or eliminated the immigration of African persons into the U.S. So this, like I said, would impact whether or not Marcus Garvey would come into the United States the very next year. This is January of 1915. Marcus Garvey would come into the United States in March of 1916 to come to see Tuskegee and the Tuskegee model. and then venture on to Harlem, where he would be able to establish his version of what was really the Tuskegee model, meaning the UNIA is modeled after the Tuskegee model. And he is able to plant seeds and grow roots in Harlem and build the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the largest Black and African nationalist organization the world has ever seen, okay? Present in every dock and port where African people are in mass, over 47 chapters in the Western Hemisphere, meaning the Caribbean, Central and South America. Never before or after has the African world been organized into a singular organization than under the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Okay, so that's my lecture on that particular case. If somebody says, well, what did Pan-Africanism do for us? This is a concrete, notable case, okay? Where you see an African person who could have had a very nationalistic view, right? I'm an African in America. No, I don't want anybody else, any other African people to come into this country and compete with me for jobs, for education, for anything. Oh, we've fought our way out of enslavement. Things are okay here. We're still catching hell, but we're fighting. I don't want anybody else to come in and complicate that, right? He could have had that attitude, but he did not. And we should take note of that, okay? On both sides, right? On both sides, because I've had both experiences, right? And there's a raging conversation about this right now with regard to ADOS and what is it? FBA and all of these things, where you see a rising tide and a very nationalistic identity for the first time, really, in this way amongst African people in America. But you've always seen that from African people in the Caribbean, right? A very, serious identification with one's nationality. What we have to understand about all of our nationalities is that they are the imposition of colonialism on us, right? We did not choose these locales, particularly for those of us in the Western Hemisphere, not of our choosing, right? Of circumstance, actually not of our own volition, actually of the actions of other people, okay? So then one has to be more in perspective about how they identify or not, primarily because identity has been constructed for us as a result of our colonial circumstance. On the African continent, this plays out all the time. Sure, there's ethnicity, which is authentic and indigenous, right? However, the colonial borders have been drawn by Europeans. It forced some people who were very different together, and it divided people who were the same apart, right? So it divided already existing African kingdoms, right? And forced some people from those kingdoms into other spaces with people they were very different from, right? And this is, so those of you who are on the African continent, you know that this has a lot to do with some of now standing conflicts. Okay, age-old conflicts to a large extent. So we always have to keep in mind when we start identifying in terms of nationality, that were these nationalities chosen by us or were they chosen for us? Okay. And then of course, there is a conversation and further in the course, I'm going to get into the conversation around ethnic identity. and how much or little that should be a factor in terms of our unity. Okay, because I understand that that's a reality. Ethnicity exists, and that's not a problem for us. It can be a problem. It has been a problem. We are still struggling with it, right? We are African people, particularly on the continent, represent the diversity of humanity. We are not all alike, right? However, presently, we have a common struggle, and our common struggle is against white supremacy and culture that threatens all of our lives and our first Pan-African Conference. African people from around the world coming together, and you should have got that from the last chapter on Booker T. Washington, Pan-African and Pan-Africanist, where they're talking about, you know, a need for the scattered children of Africa, right? To come together from the African continent, from Europe, from the Caribbean, Central, South America, and the United States, because we are experiencing the same thing, whether it's under colonialism, whether it's under enslavement, so on and so forth, right? And we are still experiencing versions of that, right? This is why the Chinese can be in Nigeria, have a restaurant and say, no Black people. Okay? The audacity, right? You're in Africa, but you can say no Black people at a restaurant. They shouldn't be allowed to have a restaurant. Anyway, I'm not gonna go too far there. All right, so that's it for my lecture today. All right, so I'm gonna just look at the comments really quickly. What time is it, Yvonne? Or can I, administrator, who's administrating? I know I'm over because my mouth is hurting. I did more talking than I wanted to. What time is it? Can I get a time check? All right, I'm not getting a time check. Hold on one
Okay.
second. So I'm gonna look at the comments.
Yeah, it's now 11:53, Dr. Taring, right?
Okay. All righty, thank you. All right, so I'm just gonna answer a couple of questions. Thank you. Hi, Denise. How are you? Thank you. Oh, thank you, Denise. Denise has been with us for a while. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, right. Thank you, Patrick. No, we're moving forward, right? You know, Africa is the future. So we are, what are we? 5 billion strong on the African continent, the youngest population on Earth. Africa is the home of the bulk of the world's resources. So yeah, we're marching towards consciousness, right? Okay, thank you, even from South Africa. Yeah, thank you, see Emmanuel. Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. So people who ordered the book, There's 3-week delay, so it's not 3 weeks now. September 2nd, books will go out. We restocked. I was sold out even almost right before the show because we had a very progressive spring with some other audiences, and but yes. So yeah, it's so funny. Sinclair Skinner brought the book to South Africa, and we will, we can talk about that even more. But yes, I'm glad people are interested again in the book. So there's quite a few people in South Africa who had exposure to the book when it first came out, like in 2016. Because of the co-founder of this organization. It was adopted by some institutions. But yeah, there's a rebirth to some degree, okay? Thank you. I'm glad everyone, when are the t-shirts arriving? I don't know whether that's, ask administrators. Oh, that's right. In Liberia, there is a Booker T. Washington Institute. That's right. And actually in the book, I talk about that. Yes. So thank you everyone for staying on to the end. We appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. If you are in the WhatsApp group, you saw the case in there. And I will be dropping the new readings into the WhatsApp group this week. You can go back to the syllabus to see what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's like Garvey, and we start looking at organizational bodies, right? And I'll talk a little bit about Garvey and Du Bois as Pan-Africanists in the larger picture and scheme of things, and then move on to, how organizations express Pan-Africanism. Yes, somebody had a question? Mohammed? I don't know if they're going to let you speak, but you can type into the chat. Exactly, Nicole. I like that name. I do like your lecture, but we'll want you to talk more about African ethnicity. Okay, was that you, Mohammed, who said you want me to talk more about African ethnicity? Oh, yes, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, I get into that as we start to talk about the proponents of Pan-Africanism on the African continent. With the lecture, if you look on the syllabus, you'll see where I get to Amilcar Cabral and his writings from Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. His whole position in line on ethnic diversity and why, how we take that, our ethnic diversity, and in this common struggle, use that in order to forge a unified front and identity, a new sort of Pan-African consciousness or Pan-African nationalism in order to advance our interests. So I covered that, the point, how unity can be forged where ethnic diversity exists, right? And how we have to look at history and culture as weapons against white supremacy and colonialism, right? Because very often some of our continental African proponents of Pan-Africanism were very Marxist and Leninist, and those Marxist-Leninist ideologies don't exactly fit perfectly into the African condition, situation, and context, right? Whereas Europeans fighting against each other can say, oh, history and culture don't matter because they may see themselves as somewhat more homogeneous. However, for us as African people, in terms of the process of liberation, history and culture always matter. And as opposed to them being used against us, we can use them as weapons to forge our liberation. And so Amilcar Cabral goes deep into how we do that and how those have to be considerations, and how he acknowledged the ethnic diversity of the people of Guinea-Bissau as they fought against the Portuguese. Okay, and he understood. I'll just give you a sneak peek. You know, Cuba is involved in there, but in that struggle, Cabral did not allow Cubans who lent strategic support and weaponry to their struggle against the Portuguese. He did not allow Cubans to engage in combat, to engage in actual fighting and actually fight the struggle. He made sure that the very diverse people of Guinea-Bissau, not just diverse in ethnicity, but diverse in gender. Men and women fought in Guinea-Bissau. I met one of the women who fought in the armed struggle in Guinea-Bissau. But also the people were of different ethnicities. And the reason why he made it a point for there to be no interruption in the combat, in the armed struggle part, by any external forces in terms of Cubans being mixed into the armed struggle, the armed militant struggle, is because people who are ethnically diverse, historically, going back to the beginning of time, right? Because we are humanity, right? Would be side by side for the first time in their history as human beings, fighting for a common interest. And now this would forge a new relationship, a new bond, a new camaraderie in their collective struggle against their colonizer, right? And it worked, and it worked, and it was successful. And I'll give you the details, and we're actually going to watch a little footage on that, and, you know, but it is very important because it's, a lot of people sort of characterize one of the challenges of Africa being its ethnic diversity. But let's be very clear, out here in the diaspora, we're just as diverse. I mean, who do people think we are out here? We are African people who were scattered, right? So we came out here initially with our ethnicity. However, what happened is that in enslavement, being forced onto plantations with people you could have been kin with or foes with on the continent, that common experience sort of erased, right, ethnicity, ethnic boundaries, even though for a long time you can see in documented evidence that enslaved African persons were aware of their ethnic diversity, okay? And then you can also see in historical documents and situations and events where not only were African people who were enslaved were aware of their ethnic identity, their enslavers were aware of their ethnic identity and began to make sure they did not put Africans who were of the same ethnic identity on the same plantations, right? Because to do so meant insurrection. You have that case in Stono Rebellion. Too many African people enslaved from the Angola region in South Carolina. What did they do? They forged a mutiny, 1739, before the Haitian Revolution, right? And were on their march to a free territory, African territory in Florida, which was still held by the Spaniards at the time. Okay, so, you know, so anyway, the point is that we are aware of our ethnic diversity upon arrival, right? But there is a common experience that erases that to some degree, right? But even still, post that, we're not the same, right? But we are forced, due to our condition, to come together in order to advance our common interests to protect our very lives, right? And all the victories we have in protecting our lives can be attributed to coming together, which is Pan-Africanism. It's Pan-Africanism. So next week, we start to get into the highest forms and expressions of Pan-Africanism, which are seen on the African continent, where it's not just about national, states having independence, but the total liberation and independence of the African continent and continental unity. What does that mean to us? The highest expression of Pan-Africanism. Okay. All right. I'm way over. I'm gonna pay for it. So, but thank you, everyone. I'm glad I was able to answer some of your questions. Oh, I don't know who this is. No clue. Okay, some people have divination. This is Thank you for being mobilized. Well, we'll talk about some ways to mobilize. But listen, part of being a member of I Love Black People, this is one of the ways you can love African people with action, right? Because it's not just a sterile, like, hey, we're in this group and we talk about this and then blah, blah, blah. No, there are some things you should specifically be doing to support what we're doing in I Love Black People. And it's not give us anything. It is use yourself as a human resources to say what is safe for us, what is a better option for us, how to protect our lives, how to protect our well-being in every area of life, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's simply somewhere to eat, where it's a place to be serviced. I mean, there's a huge difference. For those of us who know, we know that encounters with the larger world can be deadly, right? And so this is one, by coming together as human resources, sharing information, having a network around with the same idea around protecting ourselves, keeping ourselves safe, is action, right? It is actually going to preserve on many levels our very lives in many instances, okay? All right, so that's all for now, folks. Thank you so much for contributing your time, your energy on this Saturday afternoon, evening. And so I want to say, check the WhatsApp group. I'll be posting the next reading shortly. And I am because we are.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Dr. Tarin Wright, for a wonderful lecture. We really learned a lot.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Also, I wouldn't want to repeat to thank each and everyone who was participating through this lecture. We really do appreciate you guys with your effort, energy, and sparing your precious Saturday to join us on today's meeting. We really do appreciate all of you. Love and peace. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. I am because we are. Ubuntu.
I am because we are. Bye. Bye-bye.